Welcome back, guys. I'm your trainer, Tommy Rivs. We are here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Right behind me is the beautiful city of Mostar. We have a culture walk. We're going to go and explore some of the very best of humanity and some of the very worst of humanity. This is going to be an incredible opportunity to share this beautiful city with you guys. What I want you to do is forget everything that you've ever heard about Bosnia and come and explore this place with me for the very first time. Here we go, guys. Just a gentle walk. All right, so that view behind us, initially, that was one of the most iconic views, not only in the former Yugoslavia, but in all of Europe. That bridge that we saw behind us is known as Stari Most. That means the old bridge. This is a region of the former Yugoslavia known as Bosnia and Herzegovina. The reason is because there are two separate regions within this country. We're climbing up here, guys, and what we're about to see is some of the very worst of what's happened in human history. This happened right around 25 years ago, was the end of what's known as the Bosnian War. So the Bosnian War was a conflict that took place in this country. Specifically, this city underwent a huge amount of casualties. Let's come over here and just take in some of these sites. This is going to be some of the most horrific things that we'll see throughout this, but I want to just set just a little bit of context, a little bit of a precedent. These are buildings, these are ruins that were absolutely destroyed less than 25 years ago because of the shelling and the fighting that took place in this city. Over 2,000 people died in this city, which, guys, that's a relatively large amount of casualties considering that this is not the largest city within this country of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We're going to do a really quick flyby historically of this place. This town was originally established as a Roman Empire that began right around the year 0, so 2,000 years ago. Much of that is completely missing from the architecture and the history. The only reason that the archaeologists know this is because as excavations have taken place, there have been remnants of this. Most of what we see today is remnants of the Ottoman Empire. The Turks, beginning in an area known historically as Anatolia. Today this is known as Turkey. This empire spread across much of Europe in the 1400s. This was one of the areas where the Ottoman Empire, or that Turkish Empire as it's known, arrived. With the Ottoman Empire came the religion of Islam. This country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, has essentially served as the border between that Eastern world and then the Western world, which was Europe. So we had essentially a clash that took place here historically and a division that took place within the cultures and the beliefs of the people. We're going to climb across right here through the old town of Móstar. Everything that we see here, which is cobblestones, is actually that old town and is now a historic UNESCO World Heritage Site. So guys, what we're about to cross here is that famed old bridge that connects the two different sides of Móstar. These white limestones that we're climbing across have been reconstructed in 2004. All of these stones were in the river down below us. This bridge was completely destroyed during that war that took place between 1992 and 1995. These stones were then brought back up from the water, and these same stones were used to reconstruct the bridge. Guys, look out. Look and see the minarets. These minarets are the towers that come up from the mosques. So the mosques are the religious places of worship for the Islamic community that lives here. We'll see other towers which belong to the Roman Catholic Church, and then we'll also see buildings that belong to the Eastern Orthodox Church. These are the three different sides that essentially divided the people during that war that took place here in the 1990s. So guys, some of that is the dark history that took place in the 90s, not only of the people that were fighting in that conflict, but also representing the rest of the world. So not only the people that were fighting, but the people that essentially stood by and waited way too long to intervene. So many people lost their lives. So many people lost members of their families. It was an incredibly tragic period in our modern history. But guys, what we see as we climb through this city is not that story of loss and destruction and war and genocide. What I see when we walk through this story is the way an area like this, which was absolutely devastated just a little more than 2 decades ago, has risen up again. The unity that now exists among those 3 groups of people that were so divided before, how everybody can coexist in this place. You see remnants of that story. You also still see these powerful signals that serve as identifiers for the people. Now, right up here above, we have the red flag with the white crescent and the white star. That is the Turkish flag, guys. That is the symbol of that Ottoman Empire that began in Anatolia, now known as modern-day Turkey. We are right in the heart of Europe, guys, but this is an area which is still very much the Islamic world. So we're going to see the remnants of some of the battles that took place in this area, and then we'll also see what's taken place since that time in attempts to unify the communities, in attempts to establish a new identity for each of these groups of people. All right, here we go, guys. All right, we're going to cross over right here, guys, and what we're going to see is off to the right, we're going to see one of the mosques here of Móstar. There were several different mosques that were completely destroyed during that conflict. Many of them have been completely rebuilt. So we have the domes there, and then off to the right we have the minaret. That minaret points up to heaven, reminding the followers of Islam to look heavenward. And then over here to the left, we see a graveyard. Let's be as respectful as we can as we climb up through here. This graveyard, guys, if you notice, there are no crosses. This is a Muslim graveyard. All of the people here are followers of Islam. If you remember, crosses aren't a symbol within that Islamic religion. So these are people who died during that conflict. This conflict, guys, incredibly complex. This is an area where 1,000 years ago, what's known as the Great Schism took place. So the Roman Orthodox Church, which was led essentially at that time, that entire Roman Empire, which was led by Constantine, when Constantine, who was the ruling emperor of that Roman Empire, he converted to Christianity. Remember, guys, he was right about to start a battle, and he said he looked up in the sky and he saw a cross, and that cross in the sky above it had a text, and that text read, "In hoc signi vences," which means in this sign you will conquer. He used then a symbol of Christianity at the time on the shields of the soldiers, and from that time forward, the Holy Roman Empire, which it became known as, went from worshiping the pagan gods, just like the gods which the Greeks worshipped, to worshiping the gods of Christianity. So that was the change. Right around 700 years later, an incredibly significant division took place. The Western world, that Holy Roman Empire, split from the Eastern world. That Eastern world became known as the Eastern Orthodox Church. The Western world became known as the Roman Catholic Church. Fast forward, guys, 900 years, the division of Yugoslavia. When Yugoslavia divided, we had Serbia to the east, which was predominantly composed of followers of that Eastern Orthodox faith. We had Croatia to the west, which was predominantly composed of the Roman Catholic faith. And then right there in the middle, let's scoot across this road real quick. Right there in the middle, we had this country of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and they had inherited the faith of those Turkish colonizers from the Ottoman Empire, and they were predominantly Muslims. So we had what are known as Bosniaks here in Bosnia. Bosniaks in Bosnia are Muslims in the country of Bosnia. We had Croats, who were Croatian Roman Catholic, and then we had Serbs. The Serbs were Eastern Orthodox. Guys, right here, right in front of us, this giant structure which is being built is actually an Eastern Orthodox Christian church. What we see throughout this entire area, guys, are essentially religious architectural exclamation points. These religious architectural exclamation points are designed to be provocative. This church, guys, is absolutely monumental in size. Look at this. As we look up, you can see essentially what's similar to a Roman oculus. As the sun comes down through that dome, you can see the light. These huge, huge structures. Everything we see right here is very indicative of what eventually became known as the Byzantine Empire, the eastern side of that Roman Empire when everything fell apart. So we have this iconic artistic representations of this Eastern Orthodox Church. This is a new construction which is taking place here on the highest part of the city of Móstar as a representation of that Eastern Orthodox Church. What I want to show you guys as we come across out of this giant, beautiful structure, we'll see what was recently built. Just recently built in 1999 was a Roman Catholic church. That Roman Catholic church had a tower which was taller than any other structure at the time. We'll see that appearing right in front of us, off in the distance. This church right here, this Eastern Orthodox Church, is in direct response to that Catholic church which was built over on the other side of the river. If we turn and we look up to the left, that green mountain, if you squint and you look up there, you can see on top of that we have a cross, the cross that's built on the highest mount in this area representing that Roman Orthodox Church. So essentially, guys, we have these religious architectural exclamation points on all sides of this area, all of these in response to the minarets that we see down below. So we have Eastern Orthodox, which was represented during that war by the Serbians. We have Roman Catholic, which was represented during that war by the Croats. And then we have the Muslim faith from the Ottoman Empire, the Turks of Anatolia, which is represented by the mosques and the minarets. During that conflict, guys, that took place during that period of 1992 to 1995. These were essentially the fractured lines that took place as the former Yugoslavia dissolved. And these fracture lines, the way that they formed were upon the marks, the differences in identity that took place specifically because of religion. Essentially what we see in this area are the same ethnic groups, the same groups of people on different sides of the river. The divisions, guys, were not so much ethnic, were not so much linguistic, they were for the most part religious. And not only religious, but based on the different powers that backed these specific religions. So when this took place, guys, we had the Serbians backing the Eastern Orthodox Serbs here in the area. We had Croatia backing the Croats in the area. And then Bosnia. This was a difficult situation. They essentially were being slaughtered on both sides. They asked for help from the international world. The international world didn't want to get involved. They waited and waited and waited, and in the meantime, there were people who were tortured, there were people who were raped. This is one of the most recent times where rape was used as a weapon of war. Gosh, guys, over 30,000 women during that war that took place less than 25 years ago. There were 2,000 people killed in this town and over 100,000 reported deaths that took place during that conflict. It's estimated that there were up to 200,000 people that died in that conflict. There was mass genocide that took place from all sides towards all others. Indiscriminate killing that took place during that period of time. So it wasn't just the idea of trying to win a political battle. It was literally the idea of if we wipe the others literally off the face of the earth, then we won't have to deal with them as a people anymore. So guys, that is the very, very worst of what we're capable of as humanity. If we look up here on this building, you can see this was once a clock tower that belonged to a Roman Catholic church, just absolutely riddled with bullet holes, destroyed from shelling. Let's continue back down, guys. We had essentially this completely arbitrary alliances that would take place during this war. So the Croats would join up with the Bosnians, or the Bosniaks rather, and they would fight the Serbs. This assault would take place on the Serbs. The Serbs would join up with the Croats, and they would attack the Bosniaks. All the different combinations that you can think of between those three different sides took place. Just absolute indiscriminate killing, arbitrary alliances that dissolved after a week. Eventually, NATO stepped in. Most people say way too late. Before that took place, the Bosniaks did whatever they could to have allies. They were receiving arms from Pakistan. They were receiving Mujahideen fighters from the Middle East as well as North Africa coming in and instructing some of the Bosniak soldiers in ways that they could be more effective in their battles. So a really, really dark period of time, guys. We're going to continue forward, guys, back into the old town. But first, before we get there, I want to take you over here and show you just a little bit more. So, guys, I know this is heavy. I know this is a lot to see. I know this is a lot of history to take in at one time. What I want the takeaway to be, though, from this is not this heavy experience, but what I want you to see is now, living in this place where just over 2 decades ago, there was absolute war, absolute destruction. Now what we see are people that live peaceably. There are still, guys, these huge divisions. You can see it in those giant religious architectural exclamation points that are there to provoke, there to make a statement. But more than anything, you see all these different sides, the Bosniaks, the Serbs, and the Croats living peaceably together here. The divisions that take place, the hostility that exists, that animosity, most of where you see this now is between the different soccer teams on that football pitch. Hello. Let's come down here, guys. Remember I mentioned there were multiple mosques which were completely destroyed. This mosque up here on the left, that minaret that we can see right directly in front of us, this is a new minaret, a new mosque which has been recently rebuilt in this area. And then we can see the stark contrast where just right across from this we have a government building which was completely destroyed during that conflict. So 25 years ago, guys, 25 years ago. That's not long ago at all. You can see the huge scars on that building. Guys, these are heavy caliber bullet holes that hit the building, as well as shelling that took place from the top, destroying the roof. And then we come out here, guys, and we see the river. Just really quick, I just want to show you guys this. Off there in the distance, that tallest structure, that monolith that comes up above, that is the Roman Catholic Church that was built in 1999. That is the structure that elicited the response from the Eastern Orthodox Church on the other side of the river to build that structure. This right here essentially is the response from the Muslim world, these new mosques being built up. You see in this area not the tallest or the most prominent mosques in response to those, but instead you see an increase in the number, the volume of these mosques. So these mosques and these minarets are popping up all over this part of the world, and you essentially hear these competing cries to faith, where we have calls to prayer 5 different times from the minarets, and then we have these incredibly loud bell towers from the Eastern Orthodox Church as well as from the Roman Catholic Church every hour on the hour, as well as every half hour, as well as every quarter hour, calling the attention toward these structures. So it's incredible, guys. The only place in the entire world where I've sensed an equal in this amount of not necessarily hostility, but these calls for action and these declarations of identity is in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, guys, we know that there is a huge amount of division that exists there between the Christian world, that Roman Catholic world, the Protestant world within that Christian classification, the Eastern Orthodox, as well as the Coptics, as well as the Jews, as well as all of the different divisions that exist within Judaism, as well as that Muslim world. Guys, that's the only place that I've visited and experienced in my life that rivals the competitive religious spirit that exists in this town. All right, guys, let's continue moving forward. Right here, we hit these cobblestones again. This is the signal that we've made it back to the old town, this area being protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We're going to turn right here, guys. We're going to come down this narrow little corridor, and we're going to see one of the mosques that overlooks the river and that bridge that connects the two sides of Móstar. Guys, right here, right in front of us, outside the mosque, this is a fountain. This fountain is used by the Islamic faithful. They come here, they sit, they wash their feet before they enter the mosque. This mosque is a place which was completely destroyed during that conflict. We'll come around here, around the outside, guys. We can get a view of the tower, that minaret, as well as the dome. What I want you to recognize as we look back at that, this is a place that whole tower was completely destroyed, and that dome was shelled and severely damaged. But what we'll see as we come around and we'll look back is a completely new tower, that new minaret that's been built up, and then we'll also see that dome perfectly intact. And then, guys, what we'll be able to see off in the distance is that bridge, that iconic bridge here in Móstar that connects the two different sides. What I want you guys to see up here on this wall This is a common phrase that you see on the different walls. This is a reminder of the war that took place. All gave some gave all. All right. So working back down, guys, as the sun is setting, take in this incredible view. There are few places more beautiful in all the world than Móstar here at sunset. So we're going to come around here. We'll take in a view of that bridge, completely reconstructed. Those limestones, which have been brought up from the river and used to completely reconstruct that bridge. The towers on both sides severely damaged, repaired and brought back together. And then, guys, we can look back. And as we look back, we'll see that minaret, the tallest one, the most prominent, right off to the right. That one completely repaired and rebuilt. Let's come along here, guys, and we'll work our way up onto the bridge. Guys, this name, Móstar, is named after the keepers of that bridge. So the soldiers that guarded that bridge throughout history, going back all the way into antiquity, they were known as Móstari, so the keepers of that bridge. Móstar is in reference to that name. So this town is literally based around this specific structure. An incredibly important bridge historically, as this was the trade route that took place from the Adriatic Sea up here to the mountains, these mineral-rich mountains where different minerals were exported out to that sea. Let's look off here, see that beautiful water. And then as we climb up this bridge, just remember, guys, how incredible this is, that this structure completely destroyed in 1995 and then completely rebuilt here in 2004. Guys, right behind me, that mosque with the blue roof, that's the one that we just visited. That dome was completely destroyed during the conflict, as well as that minaret. Rebuilt. This serves as a symbol not of the destruction that took place in this area, but of how we can come back, we can learn, we can improve, we can become better. Guys, absolutely incredible experience sharing this beautiful historic city with you here in Móstar. This city within this incredible country of Bosnia and Herzegovina. This has been eye-opening for me, guys. This has been absolutely stunning to be able to walk through this and see this place. Learning what I did as a child as this war was raging, and then coming back here and seeing how everything has changed. The unity that exists between the people, the construction that's taken place, the rebuilding of this community, starting out, guys, seeing the very worst of what we're capable of human beings, but then as we walk through these streets, being able to get a glimpse of the very best of what we're capable of as human beings. Absolutely incredible experience, guys. I'm your trainer, Tommy Rose. Thanks for joining me on this culture walk here in Móstar, Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'll see you guys soon.